Thank you for joining us for CBN NewsWatch. I'm Ephraim Graham. Ahead today, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu declaring victory over Hamas is at hand, despite the growing U.S. and international pressure against Israel's last major military action in Gaza. We're going to bring you the story from Jerusalem. Warnings from a top U.S. intelligence official about the growing threats around the world, including the dangers of terrorists and drugs coming across the U.S. from the southern border. Here at home, another type of threat, the growing dangers from the exploding U.S. national debt. We're going to look at how this could affect the economy and your wallet. And a middle school tries an experiment. No cell phones during school hours. We're going to see how it's playing out so far. All those stories and more ahead today, right here on CBN NewsWatch.
This is CBN NewsWatch.
Lots to get to this half hour. We're going to begin in Israel, where Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu declared victory in the war against Hamas is at hand. As Chris Mitchell reports from Jerusalem, Netanyahu's declaration comes in the face of U.S. and international opposition to Israel's last major military campaign in Gaza.
With Israel facing growing pressure not to go after Hamas and Rafah, Netanyahu told Fox News victory is within reach.
Victory is close. I mean, we've destroyed, as I said, 3/4 of those fighting battalions. We're very close to victory. The best thing we can do for the future of the Middle East, for the future of peace, for the future of those hostages, is get a speedy victory.
Netanyahu also responded to President Biden's come to Jesus comment regarding civilian casualties in Gaza.
I'm not familiar with the term, even though Jesus wasn't born that far away from here. I can tell you that if it means having a heart-to-heart conversation, we've had that plenty of times over the 40 years that I've known Joe Biden.
Amid claims of lack of food, the UN seeking to deliver aid to Gaza by sea, sending a ship with 200 tons of food. At the beginning of Ramadan, Netanyahu's wife Sarah sent a personal letter to the Emir of Qatar's mother with Ramadan wishes and a plea for the release of the hostages in Hamas captivity. It said in part, "I urge you in the spirit of Ramadan to leverage your significant influence to work towards the release of Israeli hostages. Your involvement could be instrumental in bringing them home, offering a beacon of hope to their families, and taking a significant step toward peace and reconciliation." At the United Nations Security Council, Israel's foreign minister addressed Hamas's sexual violence on October 7th.
Hamas is not speaking on behalf of the Muslim world, and we are asking you to condemn the sexual violence crimes these barbarians committed in the name of the Muslim religion.
As Ramadan begins, Israeli forces are on high alert in case of an increase of violence and terror attacks. On Monday, hundreds of Israeli Arabs prayed peacefully up on the Temple Mount at the Al-Aqsa Mosque. However, Israeli security forces did kill a terrorist on his way to commit a major terror attack in the center of the country. It's why many Jews and Christians are asking for more prayers for the peace of Jerusalem and Israel during the month of Ramadan. Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Jerusalem.
And joining us now from Jerusalem is Avi Hayman. He's a spokesperson for the office of Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Avi, what can you tell us about the terrorist who was killed on his way to commit a terrorist attack?
Good morning, Ephraim. Thank you so much for having me on. I can tell you that this was a potential suicide bomber stopped on his way to an attack in Tel Aviv, is my understanding. Now, this just reminds us that Hamas gained infamy in the 90s when they went on a campaign of suicide bombings, blowing up buses not far from where I am now, blowing up buses all across the country to try and stop the peace process, the Oslo peace process. This is Hamas's raison d'etre, killing people indiscriminately whenever and however they can.
Now, there are reports that Israel killed the number 3 Hamas leader as well as the number 4. What can you tell us about that?
So as my Prime Minister said, number 4 has been eliminated. Number 3 was targeted yesterday, Marwan Issa, who is very senior, number 3, as you said, in Hamas. He was targeted. We haven't yet confirmed his death, but we've been very, very clear from day one. We intend to destroy Hamas, to bring home the hostages, and make sure that Gaza can't be a threat to the state of Israel. We will do that. We will go after their leadership. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Is there a timeline for Israeli forces going into Rafah?
So I'm not going to broadcast to our enemies as far as timing of potential operations are concerned. What I will say is that we have taken out 18 out of 24 Hamas battalions. We are currently fighting a number in central Gaza in the Khan Yunis area. There are 4 of the last Hamas battalions in Rafah. Anyone who says that we shouldn't go into Rafah would be saying that we should lose the war and enable Hamas to rearm, to retake Gaza, and to perpetrate October 7th again and again and again, which is what they want to do. So we will go into Rafah. We will finish Hamas off. That is our aim. I can't tell you specific timing, though.
Avi, Israel is asking the United Nations Security Council to declare Hamas a terrorist organization, saying it has never condemned the Hamas attacks on October 7th. Do you expect the council to condemn Hamas and do this?
Well, I would certainly hope that any right-minded person in the world would call it as it is. Hamas is a terrorist organization. It's a terrorist organization in Great Britain. It's a terrorist organization in America. It's a terrorist organization across Europe. Anyone who thinks that beheading, that raping as a weapon, that burning entire families alive is not terror, well, what is it?
Israel has retaliated after Hezbollah launched more than 100 rocket attacks at the north. Will Israel have to go after Hezbollah now after the war with Hamas is over?
So, first things first, we must destroy Hamas and return security to the people of southern Israel and, in fact, all of Israel. Hezbollah is part of that same Iranian axis of terror. They have been goading us. They have been poking us. They have been attacking us since October 8th. We have made it very clear that when they fire at us, we will return fire. We will return to the source of fire. If they want to turn up the volume, we'll turn up the volume far louder. And if they want to escalate in a serious way, we're still open to diplomacy. If they were to get past the Litani River and adhere by UN Security Council Resolution 1701, then there could be a diplomatic solution. But if not, if they want to turn up the volume, if they want to escalate, we will copy and paste Gaza onto Lebanon. That would be a sad shame for the people of Lebanon, but that is the reality.
All right, Avi Hayman from the Prime Minister's office, thank you so much for your time. Much appreciated today. Coming up, leading intelligence officials sending a warning about threats around the world, including the possibility terrorists could come over the southern border. We're going to have the story for you when we come back. You're watching CBN NewsWatch.
Introducing a brand new way to start your morning. Get your daily quick start from CBN News. A quick read on the important news of the day delivered right to your inbox. Stay current on breaking news, politics, and entertainment. Discover how God is moving around the world and here at home. Plus, get exclusive stories and daily scripture encouragement just for you. Stay informed. Go to quickstart.news and subscribe today.
Back now with a warning from Capitol Hill Monday from the top U.S. intelligence officials about what they call an increasingly fragile world order. The main takeaway from the annual briefing on worldwide threats is that the world remains a dangerous place that the country's leaders should not ignore. And the U.S. faces its own dangers as well. CBN's Capitol Hill correspondent Matt Galka brings us the story.
Emerging technology, global war, and the risk for a potential terrorist to cross the southern border. The list of problems facing the country was long, and a reminder to lawmakers to remain vigilant. The top names in U.S. intelligence said foreign adversaries like China, Russia, and Iran could be looking to influence this year's presidential election.
The threat of malign actors exploiting these tools and technologies to undercut U.S. interests and democracy is particularly potent as voters go to the poll in more than 60 elections around the globe.
The warning to lawmakers focuses on technology like artificial intelligence and its potential to spread misinformation. They also heard that the controversial app TikTok could be used by the Chinese government to amplify problems domestically.
And they said, we want you to put out videos that make Americans fight with each other or spread conspiracy theories and get them at each other's throat. ByteDance can't go to Chinese court and fight the Communist Party. They would have to do it.
That's my understanding, and I would just add that that kind of influence operation, or the different kinds of influence operations you're describing, are extraordinarily difficult to detect.
The FBI also has their eyes trained on the border, with not only drugs and human trafficking remaining a top concern, but also the potential for terrorists to enter the country.
A whole host of threats that emanate from the border, and some of them are criminal threats. We talked about fentanyl and violence. And then, of course, we have concerns that it could be a vulnerability that terrorist organizations could seek to exploit.
Looking overseas, the intelligence heads testified that global conflicts have the potential to strengthen America's enemies, including the high risk of escalation in the Middle East from the Israel-Hamas war, and that abandoning Ukraine in its fight against Russia could empower Moscow.
We remain concerned that Moscow will put at risk long-standing global norms against the use of asymmetric or strategically destabilizing weapons, including in space and in the cyber domain.
The House plans to take on at least one of the potential threats this week, with a vote on a bill that would force TikTok to separate from its parent company, Chinese-owned ByteDance, or face a ban in the United States. Matt Gelka, CBN News.
Still ahead, a longer-range threat to the U.S. of a different kind, the exploding national debt. We're going to take a look at what it could mean for the future of the economy and your wallet. We've got that story for you. It's all coming up right after this. The U.S. faces a potential crisis as high interest rates and unchecked government spending are driving up the national debt. America's debt is growing by $1 trillion every 100 days, and analysts warn if Congress and the White House do not take action, it is only going to get worse. CBN's Brody Carter takes a closer look.
U.S. national debt, the money our federal government borrows to cover operating expenses, now stands at more than $34 trillion. If that's not bad enough, the high interest rates and the crushing payments on that debt are spiraling the crisis out of control.
Right now, we're paying about $750 billion per year in interest costs, which again is approximately equal to the amount that the United States spends on national defense, if you can believe it.
Professor Alexander Salter, Ph.D. and economic analyst, says some forecasts expect the interest payments alone to double by 2033 from its current level to $1.4 trillion. The U.S. is set to spend around $870 billion in interest payments this year. That's more than America spends on the Department of Defense and our national security. Salter says the biggest drivers of the growing national debt are Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid, leaving the federal government required to pay an estimated $200 trillion in future obligations.
This is why we have to understand that military aid to Ukraine or Israel, we can debate those issues on their merits, and we should. But if we're talking 50 billion, 100 million, that is a drop in the bucket in terms of the long-run fiscal trajectory. We're not going to fix things by shaving things off. We need fundamental structural reforms.
Economists agree that the risk to America's credit rating and its ability to raise funds makes debt likely to become one of the biggest threats to our national security because the U.S. wouldn't be able to afford the military resources it will need.
If you need to protect the country in a security sense, you need to be able to do that. If you can't place your bonds, you can't command resources. If you can't command resources, you can't pay for tanks and fighter planes and bombs and all the things that you need to keep the country safe.
And we are paying for it now with these high inflation rates. And sorry to be the messenger of bad news, it is going to get far worse in the coming decades.
Economist Joel Griffith with the Heritage Foundation.
Of course, have a presidential election coming up, and it's very important that we have a candid discussion and debate about what these candidates would do to stop us from going off of the fiscal cliff.
Brody Carter, CBN News.
And with us now for a closer look at the serious economic problem is our CBN News financial editor, Drew Parkhill. Drew Money, glad to see you again. We've been hearing about this, it seems like, for decades. Why should we be taking this seriously now?
Because now, Ephraim, it's starting to snowball. Harken back with me, my son, to 2020 and COVID. So Trump increased COVID spending. The Democrats and Republicans in Capitol Hill went along with it. Biden kept that up. All right. So now we ran these huge deficits. The annual deficit, the deficit is every year, and the debt is the cumulative effect over the years, of course. And that added a lot. Well, under Biden, it's not slowing down. So we've started to snowball, and it's building up and building up. So that's part one. Part two is interest rates have shot through the roof to fight off the inflation that Republicans are going to say with some justification that Biden and the Democrats made worse. They didn't cause it, but made it worse. So the Federal Reserve, which played its part by pouring money into the system during COVID, so you got a combination of factors here, drove up inflation. Now they're trying to bring it down with higher interest rates. So this is a big problem, and all this money is being added, these deficits are being added to the debt, and it's starting to snowball in a way that's unprecedented and we hadn't seen before.
So is the debt just going to keep piling up?
Well, yesterday, President Biden unveiled his new budget, and he is looking at, according to the Wall Street Journal, an 18% increase in 2 years in federal spending. 18%. They say they're going to cut the deficit, but that's a big if these tax increases work, which is always questionable, and if this and if that. Right. So it's not necessarily likely. But regardless, we are looking at $2 trillion deficits, give or take, for quite some time to come. So yeah, it's going to keep going. The national debt has gone from 33 to 34 trillion in 100 days. Then it's on track to keep going in this kind of direction. So it is really exploding. This is a very serious problem. And with these higher interest rates, it costs the government more to pay these payments back. And that's why it's now become a much more urgent conversation.
Forecasts for us, if you can. How is this going to play out over the longer term?
Well, the Wharton Business School at the University of Pennsylvania, which is very, very respected, they said we've got 20 years to deal with this. Now, this was last October, okay? They said we got 20 years to deal with this, and after that, it's going to be too late. They said nothing can be done, all right, which I found that very interesting because that's the exact time frame that I had come up with myself, was 20 years, actually a little less than 20 years. Okay, it's got to be dealt with ahead of time. We can't wait until the last minute and kick the can down the road like Washington has a real tendency to do, like they're doing right now with Social Security and Medicare. You got to deal with this, and you got to be serious about it. Right now, it doesn't seem like anybody is genuinely serious about it. Now, they're starting to talk about it, but you are going to they said it's going to have to be some combination of tax increases, spending, whatever. But it's only going to play out in a couple of different ways, Ephraim. There's only a few possible answers. You're going to have really serious spending cuts across the board. I mean, right now we're paying, or we're going to be paying, more in interest payments on the national debt than we will be for national defense. And we're not spending as much on defense as we have in the past and as we should. So we got a ways to go yet. So you're going to cut spending, you're going to raise taxes, which never brings in as much money as they think it will, or they're just going to inflate it away and pay it back in cheaper dollars, which a lot of people think is the most likely outcome.
Real quick, what people want to know, how is this going to affect our wallets?
If it does come down to that last solution, a raging inflation, which I think is very possible as at least part of the problem, then if you think what we went through the last few years was bad, then what is coming is going to be far, far worse. We would be going back to the type of inflation we had in the late 70s into the early 80s. It would be double digit and would go on for years and would be a train wreck for the economy and for the global economy.
Indeed, indeed. All right, CBN News financial editor Drew Parkhill, thank you so much for your time. Much appreciated. Coming up, an interesting experiment is underway at a middle school in Connecticut where students are not allowed to use their cell phones during school hours. We're going to bring you a look and hear what the students have to say about this experiment when we come back. You're watching CBN NewsWatch.
Download the CBN News app, 24/7 news from a Christian perspective at home or on the road. One place for all of your news. Breaking news alerts. Set daily prayer goals and pray for news stories. Read the most important news and watch CBN News Channel live. CBN News, because truth matters. Go to cbnnewsapp.com to get the app today.
Hi, I'm John Stolnis, host of the CBN News podcast, DC Debrief. I'd love for you to join me each Friday morning for the inside scoop on Washington politics. We will talk to experts, lawmakers, newsmakers, and analysts to help us take a deep dive into the important stories you might not hear anywhere else. Don't miss this unique CBN News perspective coming to you straight from the nation's capital, because truth matters.
A middle school in Connecticut is testing the waters of a cell phone-free environment thanks to a unique method. Students at Illing Middle School in Manchester are participating in a pilot program. It requires phones to be locked in pouches during the day and unsealed after school with magnetic locks. This allows students to keep their phones but not use them in class. The program is getting mixed reviews, but some children agree being phone-free at school isn't so bad.
Time to times, we just take it out and use them out of nowhere, and we get distracted very easily, and I could 100% agree with that.
The governor hopes to eliminate phone distractions at school. It's an issue being considered nationwide. Time now for your Tuesday Tweetable. This is a message I pray will bless you, and you'll take a moment to bless others, posting, tagging, tweeting, and sharing it with those in your circles of influence. Remember this, God is more than able. There is nothing too hard for him. Check his resume. His faithfulness begins at the very beginning. With that word, make this a terrific Tuesday, and be sure to have yourself a wonderful rest of the week. Well, we are out of time for this edition of CBN NewsWatch. Remember, you can always find more of our programs on the CBN News channel. You can find them there at any time, as well as online. That's cbnnews.com. Take a moment. Let us know what you think about the stories you've seen here today or any day. You can email us. That address is newswatch@cbn.com. You can also reach out and touch us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Hope you'll join us again right here next time. Make it a great day. We'll see you back here same time tomorrow. Goodbye. God bless. Thanks for watching.